Hi everyone and welcome to STRI. My name's Mark Ferguson, I'm a research manager here and I'm on the trial ground today with Neil Stubley from the All England Club. We've been doing research with Wimbledon for many years. The relationship between STRI and the club goes back about 50 or 60 years in terms of agronomic advice and helping with the management of the grass courts. And then probably from the 1990s onwards, when Eddie Seaward, who's Neil's predecessor, took over at the club, the research that we started doing really accelerated, and lots of trial work has been done, grass testing and product testing and that sort of thing. And we're just going to have a chat about that today. So Neil, what's in terms of the research that's been done, what are the benefits that you've seen from that?
I think the biggest one that we've found, and certainly since I've started at Wimbledon and sort of Eddie sort of bestowed into us, is that the importance of research, because, pardon the pun, unless you've got a baseline to work from, you don't know how to improve. And if you don't know the research, if you don't know the background into what you're trying to grow and the soils and the plant material itself, you don't know how to improve things. So it's good to know ball bounce, ball speeds, soil makeup, moistures, and just doing all of that research to know actually what is going on and how do you then improve if you don't know what to improve on.
So it was in the early 1990s when the research that we were doing for grasses for tennis really took off, and it was my predecessor Andy Newell and Neil's predecessor Eddie Seaward who got together, and they realised that there was an opportunity to improve the quality of the grass surfaces on the courts at Wimbledon, and that was for a number of reasons. There've been some real advances in the technology of the breeding programs that the big seed companies had in place. So there's some really good cultivars of new grasses coming through, and representatives from the club came up to STRI to have a look at our existing grass testing programs, and one of the questions that was asked was, well, what is the best grass for tennis? And we had to hold our hands up and say, well, we don't really know, because we've never done any actual grass testing for tennis specifically. So the next summer, the first grasses for tennis trial was constructed at STRI, and we've just finished the 10th trial this summer, and we'll be starting the next one in the summer of 2021, and it's a rolling test program, and it's been really very successful. We started off looking at all the different amenity grass species, and quickly became apparent, I say quickly, in trial terms, quickly is in like 3 or 4 years, so it quickly became apparent that perennial ryegrass was going to be the best type of grass to use on grass tennis courts. And now we're looking at fine-tuning those different cultivars and really looking to improve the mixtures that are used on grass tennis courts all over the world, and I think that work's been a real benefit. Neil, what's your take on the grass testing?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, once we found out that perennial ryegrass was the grass for tennis, I think I'm still even today amazed about how many different varieties in the cultivars and the different reactions that you get, depending on what sport. One of the things there's always the challenge certainly for tennis, is that to produce a great tennis court, you have to sort of have the grass quite lean with nutrient, and you then have to dry it out as well. So you're kind of taking away a lot of the basic things that the grass plant needs, and it really puts it under stress. And just by the trials that you do here, and then when they develop and come onto the trials at the club, is how different the cultivars can be on just something as simple as that. And at the end of the day, it's all about, although it's about wear quality and making sure that the actual grasses are supportive of the player and make sure that there's no problems there. Mm-hmm. There is, as in all modern sports, that aesthetic look where it's got to look great all the time, and in the back of your mind you've always got to make sure that part of that research means that it always looks good, as well as delivering the drought tolerance and the wear tolerance and the disease tolerance and everything else. So it's one of those things that's ever evolving, and I think you can spend the next 50 years doing grass research and you'll continually find the new grasses and just keep evolving and just hopefully staying in front of the curve.
Well, hopefully we will have 50 years of grass testing in front of us, Neil. Whether I'll be here to see all of them or not, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it has been really important. And what we've found now is that we're really fine-tuning the grasses so that we're not necessarily finding big improvements on the cultivars that are currently being used at the club, but we are seeing some really good alternatives coming through as well, because grass, like anything else, it's a crop. You know, it can fail. Those cultivars that we're using next year or the year after might not be available, you know, so we can provide alternatives for those grasses if need be that are equally good. So that's one of the real benefits, I think, of the grass testing programme at the moment. But that's not all we're testing for the club. You know, there's tons of other trials going on looking at products, different growth regulators, wetting agents, fertilisers, that sort of thing, different sort of soils testing. But we stood in front of a trial that deserves a bit of explanation, because there's a big structure behind us here at the moment, and this is actually a shade structure. We're looking at supplementary lighting systems, different types of light, LED lights, high power sodium lights, and what they can do, how they can affect turf growth, specifically for tennis. You know, and can you tell us a little bit more about how you've been using lighting rigs in recent years?
Yeah, so we've been probably using it again. We started trialling this back in the 90s in centre court with just the little A-frame that we had at the southern end, and it's just developed from there really. And it's just, again, it's trying to when we come out of, you know, we're fortunate that we're a summer sport, so we want to come out of winter with a fairly healthy head of grass, and you know, you'll always get that sort of the shade issues and the airflow issues, where in the past at Wimbledon we've just oversown in the spring and everything looks good for the championships. But we're trying to kind of see past that and say, well, actually, when we come out of spring, we want the grass to still be really healthy, so that grass that's matured over winter will actually be stronger and tougher, better rooting systems, so when we go into the championships, we're hoping that we get those better wear qualities. And again, it's one of those, you know, the lights with the fans and the grasses and the fertilisers, and you know, there's probably a dozen different things that brings the package together. And although they all work really well together, you've also got to look at them in isolation as well. And again, the lights are one of that part. And the thing is, at Wimbledon, we've got sort of 40 grass courts spread over half a mile sort of north to south, and they've got all their little microclimates, whether it be the stadiums or Court 18 with the media centre wrapped around it, and they've all got their own sort of requirements. So it's really important that we look at the shade on all of these different courts, and just saying, well, some courts may need 12 hours, some might need 8, some might need 6. And it's just knowing the exact amount. You don't really want to overcook anything, because obviously there's a cost involved with, you know, putting the light rigs on. So it's a good balance between making it cost effective and doing the job that it's designed to do. Yeah,
and that's exactly what this trial's looking to do, really, is to refine those techniques and processes for using the lights and the best practice, you know, without wasting too much energy, without forcing too much growth and that sort of thing. So we'll see. We've got some interesting results so far, and the trial continues, so we'll watch this space regarding that trial. So of course, one of the main objectives for the All England Club is to get more people playing tennis on grass, and to improve the quality of the grass courts that people are playing on, and hopefully increase the number of grass courts that there are available to play on. So as part of that, we've kind of linked up with the club again and started doing some research in Australia. STRI have got a trial site in Queensland near Brisbane, and we set that up really with the idea of doing doing grass testing and testing for sports turf in a warm season climate. So we set up a test centre similar to the one that we've got here in Bingley, and we've set up a grasses for tennis trial in Brisbane using warm season grasses, and you know, it's been a real learning curve for us, for sure, and really interesting. But I think it's really important that that the club are investing money in that area to promote grass court tennis all around the globe.
And for me, it's really interesting because it's kind of pushing me outside of my comfort zone, knowing my cool season grasses, to actually then start to understand a little bit more about warm season grasses, their challenges, and how we can adapt what they're used for in their traditional sports arenas to actually adapt it into tennis. Because I think with the two hats on of, you know, managing the playing surfaces at Wimbledon and making sure that the championships is a great event. We also have that second hat where we want the betterment of global tennis, where, you know, if we can improve tennis facilities and make grass courts available to the juniors, it just means that by the time, you know, for the amount of percentages of players that go through the juniors and make it into the elite sport, is that the grass isn't alien to them by the time they get to Wimbledon. They've played on it, whether it be in Australia or in India or in the South Americas, that they've actually had an experience as a junior on grass, and it's just making sure that we can sort of try and promote that and see whether, you know, it's possible to have grass courts everywhere in the world.
I think it really is. I mean, we were lucky enough to visit Australia at the start of this year, before the pandemic, and you know, there was real interest in grass court tennis, and it was amazing how many grass court venues that there are. You know, that we didn't actually realise. But not just that. You know, the club are helping out with the grass court season generally, and have taken a real interest in the grass court season as a whole, particularly that, you know, from the end of the French Open at the end of May through to the start of Wimbledon. There's a lot of new tournaments springing up, and the club have taken a real hand in helping those tournaments get up and running, and that's been really good. So, you know, what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's really important that, you know, if you look at the grass court season as a pyramid and the championships being at that apex, you need that real strong base at the start of the grass court season. So the players' experience, by the time they've had their 4 or 5 weeks on the grass, by the time they get to the championships, again, it's not alien to them. They're coming from the clay court season into the grass court season. That transition, you want it to be nice and soft, and sort of, you want players to play their way into the championship. So for us to be involved in the other tournaments, it's not a case of telling them what they should and shouldn't be doing. It's having that support network where we've done the research, we've done all of the stuff that doesn't work, and it's just having that support and that advice to these other venues to sort of try and help them to deliver great tournaments and just have that real good feedback. So for players, the actual whole of the grass court season is a really good experience for them.
Yeah, it provides really good opportunities for, you know, for real competitive matches on good surfaces in the warm up to an event as big as Wimbledon, which is still the biggest tennis tournament in the calendar. And I mean, we could talk about this all day. You know, we've got the development at Rains Park, where there's lots of new grass courts for players to play on when they're preparing for the championships as well. So there's tons of stuff going on, but we've got to end somewhere. So if you want to ask Neil any questions, there's a Q&A session on Thursday at 4 o'clock on Facebook Live. So please, any questions you've got, forward them on to us, and Neil will be really happy to answer that. And thank you very much for listening.